Alright, so multiplying binomials. So binomials have two terms, whereas monomials have one. So what we're doing is we're multiplying a binomial times a binomial. So we follow this method called FOIL, which is an acronym that stands for first, outer, inner, last. So what we're going to do is we are just multiplying one piece at a time, but the very first thing we're going to do is the first terms in each binomial. So this first is this a times c. So in other words, in example 1, it would be x times x. So that's what we do first, and that's just x squared. We know that we add those exponents. Then we're going to do the outer ones, which would be a and d, the two outer ones, which will be x and 4, and that will give us plus 4x. All right, and then we do the inner ones. That inner right there will just be b and c, the ones that are closest to each other, 2 and x. So that will be plus 2x. And lastly, we multiply the last ones. That would be b and d, which here would be 2 and 4, which will give us a plus 8. All right, so when we combine all those, that would just be x squared plus 6x plus 8. Those two middle terms are the terms that we combine. Now, you guys know how to distribute. You've been distributing for forever, and if I give you something like this, you know that you take the 9 and you distribute to both of them, right? In this case, it will be 9x plus 27. I want you to understand that this is the exact same thing that you've been doing before. I'm just asking you to distribute twice. So what if I gave you an x plus 9? You're going to distribute this x to the first one. So that's the first and the outer. And then you would do the inner and last. So all you're doing is distributing twice. It's something that you've seen before. So we're going to do the first and outer. So we just distributed this 2x. And then we're going to do the inner and last. So we just distributed the 1. That's all you're doing. FOIL is a fancy way to put it, but you're pretty much just distributing twice. So I'm going to distribute this 2x to both of them, and that will be 2x squared minus 10x. And then I'm going to distribute this positive 1 to both of them, and that will be plus x minus 5. We'll combine those like terms in the middle, and that's it. So this should be a pretty easy day for you guys. Just multiplying binomials, you are just distributing twice. So I'll do the odd ones with you. So for the first one, we're going to distribute y, the first and outer. That will be y squared plus y. Then the inner and last, we're going to do plus 8y and plus 8. We'll combine those terms, and you'll notice that just about always we'll have a trinomial with 3 terms left over. For number 3, same thing. We distribute the x, so that will be x squared minus 4x. Be sure to pay attention to your signs. Negative 10, we're distributing that, so that'll be a negative 10x, and then a positive 40. Okay, so be very careful with your signs here. You really need this for Math 2. In Math 2, we assume that you already know how to do this, and don't take too much time to actually multiply this stuff out. So for number 5, we are distributing again. You distribute the 4x, that'll be 4x squared plus 12x. And then we distribute the negative 7 to both of them and combine like terms. 4x squared plus 5x minus 21. For number 7, we'll distribute the 3y. Feel free to pause this video anytime you need. So we're going to multiply the 3's together. That will give us a 9. And then there are 2 y's. We add those exponents. Then we add 6y. And then we will distribute the positive 1. And we are multiplying there. So that will be 9y squared plus 9y plus 2. So again, I'll go step by step if that's a little too fast. 8h times 3h, that's the first one. So we'll do 8 times 3 is 24, and h squared. Then we do the outer. We distribute the 8h again to the negative 1, and that will be negative 8h. The inner ones, we'll take negative 3 and multiply it by 3h, and that will be negative 9h. And then we'll take negative 3 and multiply it by negative 1, which would be a plus 3. 24h squared. Those signs are the same, so we will add those numbers and keep the sign of the bigger number, and then tack on that plus 3. So number 11, we will distribute the 5x, and that will be 5x squared. And now we are multiplying where we have two different variables. Now, anytime you multiply with two different variables, all you do is write them next to each other. So that is going to be a negative, but we're going to write them in alphabetical order. Don't put yx, make sure you put xy. And then we will add 4xy, and then the 4y times negative y will be negative 4y squared. So now these terms in the middle that we will combine to negative 1xy, which we don't have to write that 1, but it's okay if you choose to. And then we will bring down the negative 4y squared. For 13, again, distributing the 2r. So that'll be 4r squared. Distribute the 2r there. That will be minus 2rs. On the inside will be plus 2rs. And lastly will be minus s squared. Now you notice that this negative 2 and positive 2 have the same variables and the same exponents, rs. So they're going to cancel out. And we're just going to be left with 4r squared minus s squared. For 15, be very careful with this. A lot of times people will take this 2 and try and distribute to both of them. If this was a 4x, then yes, you would take this 2 and do 4 to the second power and x to the second power. However, this is different. This is x plus 4, where this is a binomial and this is a monomial. So with a binomial, anytime I have something that's x squared, you know that's the same as x times x. We're writing it twice, right? So that's what we have to do here. We need to write this twice. So anytime you see this, I want you to mark it off, and I want you to put another x plus 4. So now we're distributing just like usual, x squared plus 4x plus 16, and then combine those middle terms to be 8x. All right, so we're going to do the same thing for 17. There are two 2m minus 5s here, so I mark that off and put another 2m minus 5. So we take that and distribute. That will be 4m squared. We multiply the coefficients minus 10m. Same thing here, multiply the coefficients minus 10m. And lastly, plus 25. So we'll combine like terms in the middle. Those do not cancel out. They are the same sign. So we will add them to 20 and then keep the sign of the negative number. So lastly, we got some binomial times trinomial. So this is where I was talking about all we're doing is distributing. If I gave you a 4 and we had x squared plus 3x minus 6, you would know that all I need to do is distribute that 4 to each one, right? Well, I'm doing that exact same thing, except I'm throwing an x in front of it, and we will also distribute the x to each one. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to distribute the x to each one, and that will increase each one of these by 1x. All right, so we distributed the x, and now we'll distribute the 4. So that will be plus 4x squared plus 12x and minus 24. So now we see we have some like terms, and we have some that are by themselves. X to the third, there's nothing else there. But we do have a 3x squared and a 4x squared, which will give us 7x squared. After that, we have a negative 6x and a positive 12x. So combining those terms, those signs are different. Oh, geez. Those signs are different, so we will subtract 12 minus 6 and take the sign of the bigger number, which is a plus. And then minus 24. And that is your final answer there. So a lot of steps, but really not difficult math. Okay, so a lot of steps, but really not difficult math. We'll do the same thing with 21. So 3a times 5a squared. That will be, let me do this in blue like I did last time. We'll distribute the 3a. That will be 15a to the third plus 6a squared minus 18a. And then we will distribute the 1, which anytime you distribute a positive 1, everything's staying the same. If I multiply 1 times 5a squared, it stays at 5a squared. Same thing with 2a, same thing with negative 6. So now we will just combine like terms. Plus 6a squared plus 5a squared, 11a squared. Negative 18a, positive 2a, minus 16a. And lastly, minus 6. And then always we have a challenge problem down here. So for 23, find the area. So we know that area is length times width. So if we're trying to find the shaded region in here, we need to find the big rectangle and subtract it from the small rectangle. The area of the big minus the area of the small. So the area of the big rectangle is 9x minus 2 times 2x plus 7. And the area of the small one is, let me erase that so I can see it, 3x times x plus 12. So be very careful. This is a minus sign, so we're not going to distribute all the way across. We're distributing twice, and then we're going to combine like terms. So we have 9x times 2x, which will be 18x squared. Then we distribute the 9 to the 7, which will be 63x, minus 4x, and minus 14. Might need to make a new page here. Then we are going to do minus and put all of this in parentheses. We're keeping this in parentheses so that we know that it's different. And also we're going to have to distribute that negative. So to distribute the 3x, that will be 3x squared plus 36x. So now we will combine our terms over here. 18x squared, this will be plus 59x because the 63 and 4 have different signs. So we subtract them and keep the sign of the bigger number. And then we will distribute this negative. Think of that negative as a negative 1. So we will change the signs of both of these and make it a minus 3x squared and a minus 36x. So our final answer, we will combine the x squareds. That will be 15x squared. We'll combine the 59 and the negative 36. That will be plus 23x. And then we have the 14. So again, when it comes down to that, not a difficult problem, but just a lot of steps. I would say the biggest thing to be careful of here that I see students forgetting about is the parentheses. They would leave this as a plus 3x and a plus 36 when they combine. However, we have the bigger rectangle minus the smaller rectangle, so you know these two would have to be negative. If you got any questions, feel free to reach out.